there and talk about what's really going on. If you ask the American people right now, what's the biggest issue you're facing? They're going to say affordability and the cost of living. That's the biggest concern that the American people have right now. And we see prices are not going down, they're going up because of the tariffs. We see energy prices going up because they cut all these green energy projects that were ready to go forward, and they cut all the subsidies for it at a time. There's rising demand for energy because of all these data centers. They're cutting projects that are ready to go online. They're seeing interest rates are still high. Even if you see a 0.25% here, 0.25% there, interest rates are abnormally high right now. One of the reasons there's upward pressure on interest rates because there's so much debt that was created from the big, beautiful bill, as they call it. And we see this upward pressure on interest rates. Makes it hard for you to buy a house or get a loan. And the big issue of the shutdown, which we are trying to tell the American people about and to get this administration and our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to recognize, is that people's health insurance premiums are about to skyrocket. And they're going to hear about it all over the country on November 1st when open enrollment starts, and it's going to take place on January 1st when it hits. And people are going to see their bills go up literally thousands of dollars. Not hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars. And so we're doing this to try and educate people as to what's going on. That's why we're doing a hearing like this today. So it's breaking through. It's starting to break through. 13 Republicans yesterday sent a letter to the Speaker. They did their obligatory praise of the Speaker, and the Democrats are no good, and what they're supposed to do on their side, I guess. But they said in this letter from 13 Republicans, they said when the government reopens, we should immediately turn our focus to the growing crisis of health care affordability and the looming expiration of the enhanced ACA premium tax credits. Millions of Americans are facing drastic premium increases. The message is getting through. That's from 13 Republicans. They said allowing these tax credits to lapse without a clear path forward would risk real harms to those we represent. We're breaking through. They're starting to get the message as to what's actually happening here today. And I want to recognize, though, that a lot of people are suffering right now because of the shutdown. A lot of people are being hurt. We have to figure out how to address these rising premiums, these rising costs of health insurance, and get the government reopened. But in the meanwhile, people are suffering like my constituent that's here today, Danny Choi. Danny, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful to you. I just want to introduce you to everyone that's here. Danny's worked for 3 years at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also known as CMS, serving as a health care insurance specialist. He's a member of AFG Local 1923. And Danny's furloughed, as is half of his department is furloughed. His last pay period, he received only 80% of his paycheck. And this week, he's going to miss his entire paycheck if we don't reopen the government. And Danny's having a hard time paying his bills. Danny's parents are immigrants. My father was born in Italy. His parents were born in China. He grew up in Queens. Danny is a veteran. And we should recognize that 25% of the employees of the United States federal government are veterans. So we certainly thank you for your service, and we recognize that we have an obligation to look out for you. And right now, keeping this government closed is not looking out for you. So Danny served for 5 years as a Marine from 2008 to 2012. While serving in Afghanistan, he earned the Navy Achievement Medal. And Danny's story is the American story, and he wants to do his job. And he also deserves his paycheck. We've got to end this shutdown. So, Danny, tell us some more of your story, please.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Danny Choi, rank and file union member of AFGE Local 1923, proud federal worker at the Department of Health and Human Services and U.S. Marine veteran, collective 7 years of federal service, speaking in my own personal capacity. I'm also speaking today, similar to my colleagues to my side, as an organizer with the Federal Unionists Network, a broad coalition of unionists striving to protect the federal workforce and saving our public services. Like my colleagues next to me, I am here today to advocate for the protection against mass terminations impacting agency missions, protecting scientific integrity of our health and research agencies, and to support the federal workforce in continuing to do our jobs serving the American people. We have to remember that this shutdown crisis is a culmination of events starting with the mass illegal terminations and resignations earlier this year, in the spring and the summer, to the partisan spending bill that resulted in healthcare cuts, cuts in funding for food assistance, and now further cuts for federal agencies, further threatening our civil service. This is not making our agencies more efficient, and America will not be healthier from these changes. We can expect in New York State, where I live, the recent spending legislation or big ugly bill will lead to large healthcare cuts, estimated to result in 1.5 million New Yorkers losing health insurance coverage, $8 billion lost expected by hospitals, and over 60,000 healthcare-related jobs lost. By cutting civil servants and lowering budgets, there are federal agencies that are no longer able to effectively carry out their missions and comply with the statutory requirements. We have seen colleagues from other agencies put on administrative leave for signing a letter of dissent describing how agencies are deviating from agency mission at the EPA and FEMA. These actions create an environment that lawful dissent, threatens our ability to ensure that the public is protected and to do the job we signed up to do. The impact from loss of staff results in longer wait times from Social Security call centers, veterans having delayed access to services, and less protection for the American public for things like food inspections and medical device recalls. As a furloughed federal worker speaking in my own personal capacity and at risk to my professional career, I'm speaking out today to share the federal worker perspective to Shutdown and what we want to see from our leaders and representatives. When addressing policy for health insurance, we need to be clear that when we implement guardrails to protect against fraud, we must not forget about access and affordability of healthcare. Increasing the cost of health insurance will cause many people to opt out of health insurance, choose to delay preventative care, and increase use of the emergency room instead of using the primary care doctor. Increases in premiums and deductibles for the marketplace plans offered by the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare will affect about 20 million people. Work requirements implemented for Medicaid will lead to millions losing coverage and increase administrative burdens, despite prior research indicating that these requirements do not have any significant impact on Medicaid enrollees working. These policy changes will also contribute to higher premiums in other commercial insurance plans as well. We can expect that for-profit insurance companies will adjust their policies to try to anticipate how healthier people may choose to leave their plans and be uninsured instead of paying for these extra costs. We can also expect that some of these changes may end up pricing sicker people out from getting the healthcare they need through higher out-of-pocket costs. If our goal is to protect and improve the health of this country, continue to hold the line and continue fighting to defend our healthcare. If our goal is to protect our democracy, keep pushing for bipartisan budget negotiations to provide adequate funding for all our critical services. We must include protection to ensure that funds previously appropriated by our Congress are spent to provide those services. No more pocket rescissions or impoundment. Protect the congressional power of the purse. If our goal is to protect the working class, continue to stand with labor. Protect our collective bargaining rights, protect our rights as federal workers, and let us do our jobs. Federal workers are proud to serve the American public and want to continue to performing our duties with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Choi. Rosa DeLauro for a few remarks.
Thank you very much. And really, it still is morning. It's not exactly noon yet, so good morning to everyone. I want to say thank you to the Steering and Policy Committee for convening what is an important discussion and important education for the people of this nation. I want to say a thank you to all of you, to our witnesses, for your service in whatever form that may have taken as a veteran, as somebody who's worked in the Park Service, as civil rights lawyers, etc. But thank you for not being afraid to stand up and to use your word, Danny, to fight back, because that's where we are. We need to fight back. We have the courts, yes, they are our friends, and we work with them. We have legislation that we can be engaged in, but we are in the minority as Democrats in the House, and we can make the fight over the legislation, but we don't have the numbers to win the battle. But the third pillar is public outcry. Public outcry is what is going to tip the balance. And you are engaged in that, and I'm grateful for that. Your stories are stories that we need to tell and that you can help us to tell, because you do have just not your own stories, but those of others. And that has got to be the order of the day for us, is to let the American people know what is happening. I serve as the ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee. And if I can take an opportunity to step back a moment and offer some broader context for President Trump's shutdown and how we got here. Since the moment that they took office, President Trump and the Office of Management and Budget Director, Russell Vought, have launched a scorched earth campaign to decimate the federal government and the programs and the services the American people depend on. Their goal is to dismantle the federal government. Make no mistake. From the beginning, their approach has been burn it down extremism. Russ Vought himself wanted this shutdown, and he has publicly said that his goal is to make sure that federal employees are, quote, traumatically affected, end quote. President Trump has said he is targeting layoffs at, quote, Democrat employees. These are not just policy differences. For them, it is clearly personal. Since the beginning of this year, 200,000 federal employees have either been laid off or left the workforce. 200,000 federal employees. President Trump and Russ Vought right now are actively trying to lay off thousands more workers across the Department of Health and Human Services, Education, Commerce, Treasury, Energy, Housing and Urban Development, Homeland Security, and Interior. They have canceled energy projects in Democrat-led states. They have frozen public infrastructure funds in Democratic-led cities. They have just recently terminated a series of Army Corps of Engineers contracts in New York. They have boasted that their goal is to lay off upwards of 10,000 more federal workers. It has nothing to do with a shutdown. It has all to do with they wanting to dismantle the federal government. This assault is what they have always wanted. It is what they were already doing. It is not a new pressure tactic. It is not a strategic maneuver. It is a corrupt abuse of power that they have chosen to carry out because they are corrupt and they are illegal. The administration does not want to be held accountable for these actions, and so they are trying to blame them on President Trump's shutdown. Meanwhile, President Trump's refusal to prevent health care costs from skyrocketing for 24 million Americans is bringing more harm to communities every day. But people are getting the messages. Connecticut's premium costs went out on the 20th. All over this country, they are getting the notices that tell them what they are going to have to pay and what they will not be able to pay. The NIH, the National Institutes of Health, has been forced to freeze all new grants and contracts, interrupting crucial research into debilitating diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, ALS, heart disease, rare genetic conditions, countless other health issues that impact families all across this country. As we sit here today, we have no idea how the administration will deal with the lack of funding for both SNAP, the food stamp program, and the Women, Infants, and Children program, WIC, on November 1st. And yes, they don't know where the money will come from, but Argentina will get $40 billion. Schools and children who rely on programs like Head Start will begin to see funding shortfalls as new grants are not issued. Special education is being cut. This puts thousands of low-income children at risk of losing access to educational support early on in the school year. But Argentina will get $40 billion. Community health centers, nursing homes will be left with only partial funding support as the shutdown persists, putting a significant strain on their capacity to treat the primarily low-income patients who rely on their services. Argentina will get $40 billion. Instead of allowing President Trump and Russ Vought to run roughshod over Congress's power of the purse, refusing to do anything to stop health care costs from skyrocketing and prolonging this shutdown, it is hurting our communities. Medicaid covers children, those who are disabled, who are going to be. Republicans should end their month-long vacation, return to Washington, D.C., work to address all of these issues. And just within the last 48 hours, our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and the leader in the Senate, Senator Schumer, asked for a meeting with the president, and he summarily said no, he would not meet. We are here, as you all can see. We are ready to reopen the government as soon as the Republicans decide that they are ready to do their jobs. I thank my colleagues on the committee for convening this meeting and our witnesses for their time today. You know, my friends, the Congress is an institution that responds to external pressure. You are that external pressure. We need your voices and your networks loud and clear to say enough is enough. Let us move forward. Let's provide the services to the American people that they deserve. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ranking Member DeLauro. And now we'll move into the question period. I think each member has the list in front of them, but I'll call on you as we move forward. I want to start by thanking all of you for being here, for your incredibly hard work and for your courage, because it takes courage to, especially for those of you that, like Mr. Choi, are still employed by the federal government, and Mr. Osadebe, I mean, really, your strength and character are remarkable, and thank you for the incredibly important reminder for all of us that we have to stand firm on top of the principles and foundation that this country was founded on. So I serve when Congress is actually in session and the appropriations process isn't horrifically broken by our friends on the other side of the aisle, I'm the ranking member of the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Subcommittee. It's the only committee in the Congress, of which we're very proud, that is responsible for the entire life cycle of an individual upon their entrance to military services on active duty, all the way through their time as a veteran and even to their burial. And so it's an incredibly important responsibility, and particularly when it comes to the quality of life of our service members and our veterans and the dignity in which we lay them to rest. I'm obviously disgusted, as many of you are, by the treatment of our nation's veterans, especially the fact that President Trump and his White House have laid off more veterans than any president and administration in history. My question for Mr. Jones and Mr. Choi, I know you're probably already aware that the Urban Institute released a report last month that estimates over 600,000 non-elderly veterans have access to health care through the ACA. But if the tax credits are not extended, more than 260,000 veterans might lose their access to affordable health care coverage because they get their health care in part from the ACA. It is unbelievable. It's breathtaking to me that the administration would allow so many veterans to lose their health care. Can you both talk about what kind of impact widespread loss of health care coverage for our veterans how that would impact your peers?
Yeah, I can go first. Well, thank you for the question, Congresswoman. I'm not aware of many veterans on the ACA. I just assume most veterans get their care at the VA, but I guess there's rules what quantifies a person to be able to get that care at the VA
Right.
based on a disability. But if these vets are on the ACA and they lose their health care, then if they're not eligible to get care at the VA, yeah, it's going to be devastating for these veterans. They can't afford to pay the increased premium starting January 1st. I'm fortunate that I use the VA. I qualify for care at the VA. So, but even that care has diminished since this administration came into power
How so?
back in January. It delays in getting appointments are longer. My mental health appointments used to be an hour long each session. Now it's down to 30 minutes because of the increased folks that are coming into the system. And my counselor used to work at home. They moved him back into an office that he has to share with 2 other people to do these mental health appointments. So it's making it extremely tough to schedule these appointments when there's not enough office space at the clinic that I go to.
Wait, are you having your mental health care appointments with your counselor with other people in the room?
No, ma'am. It's he has to share an office with 2 other folks.
Okay.
And so I'm sure that's what causes some of the backlog too, because there's not enough office space or rooms in the clinic to provide all this care, as far as being confidential and whatnot.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've seen delays there, and then the disability claims. I know a person that files she's a person that examines VA claims, a rater basically, and so there's been a huge influx of claims, and they've lost people that do that type of work that rate VA disability claims, so it takes longer now to get an answer. I mean, it's always been several months, but now it's even longer. I think it's up to 6 months or longer.
Thank you. Mr. Choi, when you answer, can you also, I know you were a Marine Corps veteran, and I wanted you to just kind of cover, with veterans facing their such financial uncertainty, if you can comment on what the administration is doing, but also answering the other question.
I'll start with the earlier question regarding the Affordable Care Act marketplace plans. So like James, I'm not familiar with anyone that specifically has those, but thinking about the situation, we can expect that folks that do not have health insurance coverage or choose not to because of the ridiculous premium and deductibles and being unable to pay for it would most likely get their care through emergency care, and most likely will have delays of care. So for folks with chronic disease, folks that have certain disabling conditions that they would not be able to necessarily get support at the VA, would find other ways to get that resource, typically through emergency care. So this is kind of at the most emergent type of dangerous situation will folks probably have that touch point with healthcare and cause that delays. So that is
particularly for veterans, though. I mean, given the needs that they have that are so urgent, and the risk if you're going through PTSD and so many other complexities, if you have the ACA even as a supplement to coverage at the VA, what kind of impact disproportionately would that have on veterans?
I can't say for sure, but I can see impacts in getting access to behavioral health, for example. Like if you were using, if your disability rating didn't cover all the full range of services, you would use the ACA to supplement your services. That may be some of those type of services that would get delayed or may have to be paid out of pocket, which causes issues for folks having access to those services. For the second question regarding some of the financial difficulties, I know a lot of employees that are also veterans that are furloughed, for example, are just dealing with a combination of both the difficulty in having the additional side income, right? So like having the ability to, because in this furlough situation, you'll have to go through similar procedural things to try to get alternative income source while we're waiting for an additional paycheck. And I think some veterans specifically would have some challenges with that because of the flexibilities are offered as a federal worker. So for example, folks that have certain disabling conditions that cause it really difficulty to do certain jobs, right? So the federal government is one of the vulnerable employer because it used to have reasonable accommodations to support folks from a broad range of different conditions that may affect how folks would get jobs in the traditional employer. So folks that have these type of conditions may have a harder time looking for these additional income sources during the shutdown.
Thank you very much. Congressman McGovern.
Thank you very much, and good morning. I'm Jim McGovern. I represent the Massachusetts 2nd Congressional District, and I first just want to thank all of you for being here, and I want to thank you for all that you do. And I want to thank you for your courage, and I want to thank you for coming here and putting a human face on what these cuts are all about. Republicans have put us in a pretty shitty situation. I was trying to think of a nicer word, but I couldn't. Trump has said that he was going to fight inflation and lower costs. Instead, Republicans have cut almost $1 trillion, $1 trillion from Medicaid, and $200 billion from SNAP. The average SNAP benefit is a little over $2 per person per meal, and most of the people on the benefit are working people. And that's what they're going after. Yesterday I sent out a message to my constituents asking them to share with me if they had received notices that their health insurance premiums would increase next year. Within the first 20 minutes, I had over 100 responses. People are terrified, and it's already hard enough to afford food and housing, and now people are worried about not being able to afford their health care as well. Donald Trump and his lifestyles of the rich and famous cabinet don't worry about the cost of health care. They have concierge health care. These things don't ever enter in their thought process. But for the people I represent, for those of you here, and for the people that you're also speaking on behalf of, this is a huge deal. And as was pointed out, we could find $40 billion to bail out this right-wing cuckoo clock in Argentina, but we can't find the resources to make sure people don't see their health care premiums double. I don't get that. If you think helping that crazy man in Argentina is more important than people in this country, then we don't share the same values. And I'm also deeply concerned about the corruption. So much, millions and millions and millions of dollars going to enrich this president, his kids, his family members, and the people in his cabinet. It makes me nostalgic for Richard Nixon. That's how bad it is. For years I've said that Donald Trump is the most corrupt U.S. president in recent history. But after these last few months, I want to amend that statement and remove the word recent. This is unbelievable. And I just have a couple of questions. I'll begin with you, Mr. Shriver. I want to ask you how this administration's hostility toward federal workers has impacted interest and enthusiasm about continuing or starting civil service careers. And I also, want to point out, and you can elaborate on this, that this is not just about federal workers, right? It's about the services they provide, people all throughout this country. These are not Democrat or Republican workers. These are workers who work for the American people.
Thank you for the question, Congressman. As the former acting director of OPM, I'm so proud of these federal workers up here and the bravery that they're showing and what they're showing the American people about who a federal worker really is. I talk to federal workers all the time who are going through the worst moments of their careers. And to a person, they always start with, who's going to take care of the job that I was doing? Their concern is always about the American people that they're helping before they talk about their own personal circumstances. People who work for the federal government are very committed to the mission, and we just saw 154,000 federal workers leave under the deferred resignation program. Over 2 million years of experience walked out the door on September 30th. And what I have to say about that is it must have been pretty awful for them to do that. It must have been terrible because federal workers don't want to leave those jobs that they work so hard to get because of the impact they can make. I'm incredibly concerned about the impact of these policies on younger people wanting to come and work for the government, on skilled people, AI experts, the kind of talent that the federal government needs in order to keep up with the challenges of modern day life. The government was recruiting young people, recruiting tech talent, recruiting AI talent. They were, for the most part, probationary employees at the beginning of the Trump administration, and they were summarily terminated without cause just because the Trump administration thought they could do that. What message does that send to young people, to tech talent, to the greatest AI minds in the country? We're telling you on the one hand, we want you to come and work for us, and on the other hand, we're letting you go with no good reason at all. The government has had historic challenges in recruiting young people and recruiting tech talent, and what this administration is doing is turning it into a workforce that doesn't try to recruit the best and the brightest, but that tries to recruit the most loyal.
And as Mr. Jones pointed out with regard to the VA, I mean, how do you get people to want to come to work for the VA when you're being told that they're about to lay off a whole bunch of workers, right? I mean, people want some stability, but people also want some respect. People deserve respect. I mean, our federal employees do everything from helping our veterans to helping protect our national parks to providing people Social Security, right down the list. And I'm sick and tired of the demonization of our federal workforce and the attack on federal unions as well. I just have one other quick question, and that is to Ms. Latham. Medicaid and the Department of Education support individuals with disabilities through adulthood. And how have you envisioned these services would assist Calvin as he gets older? And if these services are destroyed, what might Calvin be inhibited from doing or achieving in his life?
Thank you for the question. That is one of our biggest concerns, is how the implications of this bill will resonate throughout his life. We live in Virginia, where there is a significant wait list for wraparound supports for people with disabilities. So we only have a supplement of the Medicaid waiver because we are one of over 14,000 people on that wait list. We don't know when he will be available for the additional Medicaid services. So understanding that will likely affect the length of time that we will be on that wait list will go well into his adulthood. They're already telling us that it will be into his adulthood. And we meet families all the time who have adult children who they may be in their 70s or 80s, and they tell people all the time, I'm afraid to die because I don't know what's going to happen to my child, because they're already not receiving the services that they should be. So programs to help support Calvin in the future for college are being cut. We're seeing cuts at the federal level for housing and human services that will help support him in his day-to-day as he becomes an adult. And we would hope to live independently as he can with supports, but with the increase of attacks on his education, the supports of his education, the supports for his teachers, that will have a lasting impact on his life and people like him.
I heard similar. I did a town hall in Worcester, where I live, and I heard similar concerns from parents whose kids
Mr.
needed
McGovern.
These services. But I'll yield back.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Congressman Tonko.
Okay. Yeah, it's on now. Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman. I represent the Capital Region in New York, the Albany, New York area, and just impacted by so many of the cuts that our constituents are raising their voices, very, very concerned. And Donald Trump and his GOP allies are purposefully making this shutdown as painful as possible for the American people. They have made it no secret that they are attempting to entirely eliminate federal agencies. Seems to be their underlying goal. And the Department of Education is one of their top targets. This is illegal. without approval from Congress. But they continue to go forward with this agenda. He attempted to illegally fire thousands of federal workers, something that no previous president has done during a shutdown. These cuts are unnecessary. Trump has proposed steep funding cuts across the federal government, including the Department of Education, which would have a devastating impact on our children and our communities. In fact, compared to this time last year, the Department of Education has been reduced by more than one-half, as thousands of staff have either departed or been fired. This has been going on since day one of this administration. Now he's using the shutdown that he caused to go even deeper. In the most recent rounds of cuts, 466 employees were fired at the Department of Education. That was a fifth of the remaining staff at the agency. These firings affected those who oversee Title I grant funding, which is designated for low-income schools, the Office for Civil Rights, the management of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers, which facilitate summer and after-school learning programs. There are 3 employees left at the Office of Special Education Programs. 3. That's 3 employees left at the office that oversees more than $15 billion worth in funding under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and ensures that students with disabilities are receiving the same opportunities as their peers. 3 people. Who is going to answer the call when a family is desperately trying to get the resources that are necessary for their child? Who is going to look after the promise that children of different abilities in this country are supposed to be guaranteed the same opportunity as their peers? Who is going to assist every school in the nation with this monumental task? That seems like a pretty big task for just 3 people. We must confront the reality that when we cut education, we cut opportunity, we cut innovation, we cut our nation's future. Depriving students of resources today increases the risk of leaving behind an entire generation of students who are unable to reach their full potential. The Trump administration does not have to do this. They are deliberately choosing to inflict as much pain on the American people as possible. Families across our country are now getting hit on multiple fronts. First, the Republicans' big, ugly bill made the largest cut to Medicaid in history while refusing to extend tax credits that make health care affordable for millions more. Now they're gutting access to special ed and resources that millions of schools and families rely upon all across our great nation. Lindsay, I heard your responses to my colleague, Representative McGovern. But are there other things you would tell us about in terms of the devastating cuts, what they mean to your family, what they mean to Calvin, what they mean to families like yours?
In the state of Virginia, as I mentioned in my remarks, the JLARC study showed that there were instances, vast instances across the Department of Education in Virginia where they found that students were denied a free and appropriate public education. In those situations, they are supposed to be given compensatory services to be made whole. What the study found is that VDOE does not follow up to ensure that those compensatory hours are being met and that those children are made whole. So our next step would be to go to the Office of Civil Rights, which is no longer available. So the backstop for families like mine is there is none. We just don't have a voice now to help support these students who are being denied access to an appropriate education. And if this is the trend in Virginia with the budget that we have, I can't imagine what that looks like in states like Alabama or Louisiana, where they are also, disability doesn't discriminate. Everyone will have disability in their life at some point. It is not partisan, it is not a party. Disability will touch every single person, and it can happen at any single time. So there are people who are really going to suffer. There are children who are very much going to suffer, and there are teachers. The teachers need our support. Special education is the most critical area where we have a deficit in teachers. And the resources that come out of OSIP to help support those teachers are no longer available. So we're making it harder for people to enter the profession, and that's very scary.
Well, thank you to the panel for being in this fight, each and every one of you. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. I want to also thank our witnesses for being here today. Your testimonies are so very powerful, and they highlight the harm that this Republican shutdown is having on the American people, whether it's our children in special education. I had an honor of representing kids for their IEPs for a year and doing that work, and know how important it is to have advocates there and to make sure the services are there. And Mr. Jones, your comment about keeping the promise to our veterans is so very important, that we keep in mind that we continue to fight for our veterans and our federal workers. So thank you all. I want to also say it's been really disappointing that as these harmful impacts are happening to federal workers and people across the country, that our Republican colleagues have just stood by in silence. Just stood by in silence as this has happened. And so we're going to continue to fight for everything from collective bargaining to health care to our federal workers. So thank you all for being here. Mr. Asadabi, I just want to thank you for your powerful testimony and highlighting what's happening. The American people need to know what is happening at HUD and the rollback of what I see as civil rights enforcements and programs. And you said it so eloquently, what people fought and the blood, sweat, and tears for. So my question is to you. I serve as the co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on Homelessness. I work with my colleagues on legislation and policies to ensure everyone has a safe place to call home. And the Trump administration has threatened to use this shutdown to attack programs it doesn't like, some of which you've mentioned and you've spoken about. He's already made cuts to funding and to staff, people like you who are willing to speak out, and that this is going to really impact programs and make sure there's equal access to housing. Do you see these moves by the administration and the current HUD leadership during the shutdown as part of a plan to undermine the long-term enforcement of civil rights protections for housing?
Thank you for the question. It's hard to see it any other way. We actually did try to give them the benefit of the doubt at the start of the administration. They won the election. They have the right to set priorities, to take things in a different direction. But what we've seen is the removal of any capacity to do this work at all. We've seen disrespect for anyone who does the work, getting emails telling us that we're basically useless and would be more efficient in the private sector, firing the people who do the work, putting restrictions on the work. I'm not sure what other way to interpret that. Maybe we should ask Secretary Turner. We've put out an ask to have a hearing with him. He should come and explain his plans, explain what he's done already, and we'll see if he can defend it and explain it to you and to the American people. I'm not sure that would be very successful, but we should do that. I think it'd be very interesting. Our ability to do our work has been, shredded systematically. When you go from the beginning intake process, reducing the ways that people can file complaints, you get rid of the investigators, you get rid of the people who could prosecute the claims, you get rid of the ability to send the claims somewhere else, you get rid of the fair housing organizations that were required to fund by law, you get rid of the state organizations that are required to enforce people's rights. I'm not sure what they expect people to do to have their rights protected. It seems like they're much more concerned about defending the rights of landlords and banks and developers and the people who already have quite enough in this country and are much less concerned with the survivors of domestic violence, some of which I know are on the street right now. The last thing that I did before getting fired on September 29th was talk to some people in our client office, and they were asking for help to how to get a woman who is currently homeless, how to get her housing authority to actually give her housing back because she lost it due to a stalker who physically assaulted her, and she had to flee. And it's my job to help that person. Everything that they could do to stop me from doing that, they have done, including walking me out of the building for telling you that they're doing that. So that's the situation. And it's a critical situation. We need to do something about it.
Well, thank you. I apologize for how you and federal workers have been disrespected, not valued. And that's, one of the things Democrats are here to do. It's to stand up and stand with our federal workers, making sure that there's ability to have oversight, as you mentioned, bringing in the secretary, asking questions. That's all going to be very critical work for us to continue to push for until we have the ability to have the gavels to call in and do that oversight and call in these witnesses. And we implore our Republican colleagues to do that, to stand up for their constituents, for their federal workers, for everybody, and to have accountability regardless of who is in the White House, and making sure we're continuing to fight for lowering costs and saving health care. So thank you all for your service and for your courage here today. I'm out of time, Mr. Choi. I wanted to ask you a question, but I will have to yield and have an opportunity another time. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I am Congressman Stephen Horsford from Nevada, and I want to thank the co-chairs of the Steering Policy Committee and Leader Jeffries for prioritizing this hearing and for centering your voices in this debate about where we are as a country and a Congress and what we have to do going forward. And I want to start by saying you all are the best of America. Not only your service, civilian service, your military service, your commitment and compassion on behalf of your family, but you represent what it is we're fighting for in this moment, and that is the American people. Sadly, it's now a month since Speaker Johnson has opened the doors of Congress. I'm elected to represent 750,000 people from Nevada to do my job, which is to fight on their behalf. And this speaker is impeding my ability to do my job because he's been MIA on a taxpayer-funded vacation for now over a month. September 19th, in fact, was the last time the House of Representatives was in for a vote. Could you imagine not showing up to your job for a month? No notice, walking out, no plan, and just saying, I'll come back when I feel like it? That's essentially what this speaker has done. He's shown no respect for the American people or this body. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, you are the Speaker of the House, not the Speaker of the Republican Party. And so I'm calling on him to bring back his conference and to open the doors of Congress so that we can do our job, which is to meet in a bipartisan way, to debate, to argue, to reach bipartisan agreement, to reopen government, and to fund essential services, including health care. And I also want to thank each of you for centering this issue of civil rights and how housing and education and health care are fundamental civil rights, because that is something that I think has been missed in the attack and the assault that's happening by this administration. Mr. Jones and Mr. Choi, I want to say thank you for your continued service to this great nation. not only have you served in uniform, but you've continued to serve as civil servants. And that commitment does not go unnoticed, and everyone here is grateful for that service. And we know that a high percentage of our federal workers are veterans who have chosen to continue their service through civil servants. So I just want to ask each of you how this government shutdown has impacted you personally and those of your furloughed workers, your peers, if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
I think of two pieces to how the shutdown has impacted me. But this has kind of been a continuation of how I felt since the beginning of this year with the different changes going on. One is uncertainty, not knowing how my job or my role will be affected because of political targeting, because of a lot of rhetoric around having to show loyalty. A second one is focused around moral injury, right? So as someone who has dedicated a big part of time to study health policy, think about how to best think about health insurance policy and how to support different communities, having the idea that talking about health equity is something that's not allowed in the workplace. Seeing folks that are focused on Office of Minority Health getting shuttered in their work around health equity or how to think about people with unmet needs, how we can no longer do that in our workplace, right? So those two pieces, I think, are centerpieces of how I feel. During the shutdown, specifically around this issue around health premium increases for the Affordable Care Act plan, I see my colleagues across the different centers in which their work is focused on this and seeing how they must be struggling with how do they balance that with their own personal principles and the moral injury they must feel. I also see colleagues in Medicaid working on the work, implementing the different things that are implemented to the bill and how they must feel, knowing that it would not have that positive impact around employment, but may cause issues with folks getting uninsured, folks that have this, what we call lumpy income, right? So they're self-employed, they're contractors, don't necessarily work a certain amount of hours, or how the paperwork may cause them to lose insurance, may lead to, if they have a chronic illness, may lead them to get even sicker, may lead to unnecessary harm and suffering. So I think those two feelings would sum up how I feel.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Congressman, on a personal level, like most people, you know, I have a mortgage. I have two boys. One's 15, one's 10. My 15-year-old, you know, he can eat $200 worth of groceries in 2 days. So
they're expensive.
Yeah. So, and as you know, groceries, they haven't gone down as promised by this administration. In fact, they've gone up. All you have to do is go to the grocery store and, you know, drop $300, and you can almost carry it out in two hands. So, yeah, while we're furloughed, obviously, we're not getting paid. So, yeah, it's having an impact on my family, obviously, and many other federal employees. You know, I'm lucky in the regard that my wife, she has a great job. She makes decent income, and we have savings. So we're able to weather the storm, I guess, for a while. You know, we have to tighten the belt. We've been very frugal on what we spend, but I have friends in the Park Service and other federal agencies that aren't as fortunate as me. And so they're very concerned, you know, if they miss a mortgage payment or the rent payment, are they going to be kicked out? You know, are they going to have their home foreclosed on, or the landlord's going to kick them out if they can't pay their utility bills?
Right.
They turn their power off, their internet off. So these are real world problems that a lot of people are facing as federal employees. And the longer this goes on, obviously it's going to get worse. So I'm hoping your Republican colleagues will come back and do their job so we can do our job.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here. You know, during this administration and the attacks on everything from people's health care to civil rights to freedom of press to freedom of our universities, there's been two responses. One is sort of to cower in fear, and the other one is to stand up. And especially for all of you who are federal employees, thank you for the courage that it takes you to stand up. Because without people like you, the American public really cannot understand the vastness of the attacks on everything from healthcare to our basic civil liberties. And so I appreciate all of you being here. You know, my mom used to always say to me, you don't need to listen to what people say, you need to watch what they do. And that tells you what their priorities are and what they value. And, you know, I sort of, we're now in day 33, and we haven't had a gavel. We haven't seen our Republican colleagues here. Mike Johnson has not gavelled in the House of Representatives. But let's contrast that to July 2nd, when we were all back in our districts, getting ready for the 4th of July holiday, doing our work in our districts, and we were all rushed back here, and he gavelled in, and we passed the biggest attack on middle-class Americans in Medicaid and SNAP benefits in history. The passage of this big bill, I don't call it beautiful, I have another B word for that, that really ripped health care away from 15 million Americans. Also, they could go and give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. And so it's sort of in this backdrop that we're here today, having this hearing. I keep thinking about the tearing down of the east wing of the White House so that Donald Trump can build a $250 million ballroom while federal employees are being being forced to skip their paychecks, being forced to, Congressman Horsford and I met with many of federal employees back in our district, don't even know how they can afford to get gas so they can even turn up for work that they're not getting paid for. And so it's just really the discrepancy in priorities is just astonishing to me. And, what we heard from the federal employees that we talked to was this is just a continuation of everything they've been under from the get-go, from the very beginning with the DOGE cuts to, having to write your 5 things you accomplished in the week, to seeing the firings and the disregard for family leave, and now the executive order attacking basic collective bargaining. And so my question I'm going to ask Mr. Shriver, Mr. Jones, Mr. Ozadibi, and Mr. Choi. What I've noticed with this administration is they try to achieve their priorities by attacking the people who implement our laws. And so, it's a sinister attempt, whether you're talking about the rollbacks to the Department of Special Ed. Now, these are the individuals that make sure that the decades-long promise from Congress that, that ensures that disabled students receive free and appropriate education and protects the civil liberties. Or you see the Bureau of Land Management rolled back, Park Service rolled back, the VA rolling back the benefits. And so my question in HUD, seeing the rollback of protections, is just very quickly, because I'm running out of time, can you tell us when employees get cuts and when these attacks on employees happen, what does that mean for the ability to deliver the services that you're called to do?
It's devastating, Congresswoman. It's devastating. And I don't think the American people quite understand the far reach of the services that the federal government provides day to day. And I don't think this administration gets it at all. I don't think they had any plan for how they were going to continue delivering services when they did these cuts. So we might be talking about wildland firefighters. We might be talking about safety inspectors that go into meat and poultry plants and make sure that our food is safe. We might be talking about nurses at the VA. The largest occupation in government is nurses who serve our veterans in VA facilities. We might be talking about people that handle customer service on benefits programs like Social Security. What are you going to do when the people that answer those questions are no longer there and somebody needs their check? It goes on and on, the kinds of services that the American people depend on every day that can't be performed like this.
Thank you. Just quickly, one example from the VA.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Yeah, the VA, obviously, if the staff is cut, it hinders the ability to provide care to veterans. That's overhead staff, and that's where they're targeting a lot of that, of those cuts. But there's also not doctors and nurses that are leaving as well. And so the fewer staff, the fewer medical staff that are there, obviously, it's affecting our care. Mm-hmm. Longer wait times to get an appointment, longer times to get an answer on a disability claim.
Thank you.
So without the investigators and attorneys that actually enforce the civil rights laws, the laws are just on paper. They're not a reality for people. There's nothing you can hold on to actually make your landlord treat you with respect, or make your bank not overcharge you, or just ban you from getting a mortgage in the first place. And it gives companies, landlords, governments too, gives them the thought in their head that I can do whatever I want because no one's watching me. The government's not going to do anything. They're on my side. I'm going to go ahead and overcharge that person. I'm going to kick out that domestic violence survivor because I just don't want to deal with this. That disabled veteran who needs a ramp to get into the building, I'm just not going to build it. They can deal with it themselves. That's what it means. And that's anywhere you live in this country, whoever you voted for, none of that matters when you don't have your rights and no one to enforce them. You just don't have them.
Thank you. One more. Sorry, I'm way over my time. But
I'll speak to the, so about 300 or so folks from CMS, the agency I work at, were fired really early around March. Some of them are part of the Office of Civil Rights, right? They process a reasonable accommodation claims for workers that have different conditions that cause it very difficult to work in a certain way. So you have reasonable accommodations to help them for accessibility. When those people are cut, it impairs how new employees or current employees may interact with the workforce. Some of them leave because they're no longer able to do the job that they do without these reasonable accommodations. This also impacts folks that have their parents that need specific accommodations to handle balanced childcare or supporting their elderly parents and various other conditions which make it more difficult for a worker to do their job. So the federal government had this reasonable accommodation contract to support workers across different needs and different ways in which they need to have support in order to do their job. When CMS cuts that, it reduces how folks may be able to stay working at the agency, and many folks did leave and have issues to this day. When that office got cut, all those claims got put into the main Department of Health and Human Services. I've had colleagues from CDC that still have backlogs of reasonable accommodations that were never addressed, starting from earlier this year. So this is a big concern and a way in which administratively we make it difficult for workers to do their job and to support all the different needs that they have as a person.
Yeah, I mean, the basic theme is our most vulnerable in our country are at risk and their rights are being ripped away. And at the same time, while the wealthiest Americans are enjoying the largest tax break in history. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleagues, and certainly to you being here as witnesses. Madam Chair was updating me. I was in another hearing earlier. But I guess I have a question to ask you that centers more about what you can tell us we should be doing more, because that's the way the questions are coming in. How is the shutdown going to affect my contract as a contractor worker? Or with veteran services? We get a lot of calls from veterans with CMS. What are some of the things? So let's take, we know healthcare is the big crisis. And I think we understand that because we've been dealing with that, and our message has been so clear about being able to save our health care, cut the costs, and that. But how are federal rental assistance programs affected by the shutdown? And I know you work with HUD.
So, I mean, during the shutdown, things like that, those are Democrat agency things. So those are not happening right now, of course. And I'm not sure that those will be come back after the shutdown. So those are the stakes right now. This is kind of a final attack on all the things that help working people, things that aren't just like a weapon, a tool to use against political enemies or people who don't vote for you, or just things that don't enrich certain people. Everything that doesn't fit into that category is what's under attack right now, and that definitely includes rental assistance, because when people don't have that assistance, they're forced to move in with family or live out of their car or get into huge credit card debt. It affects their education, it affects their jobs, it affects so many different things. And that's why I think it's really important that Congress stands up, like the risk level that I'm taking right now, being here talking to you, and as I've been over the last several months, that's what we want to see from Congress. Okay. Understanding the stakes, understanding that they are attempting to come for it all right now. And it needs to be Congress understanding that and acting accordingly. So that means working with federal unions, because we are the workers in the building who can tell you what's happening, and it's going to be the union people who speak up. So got to make sure that the unions are still there, and got to make sure that the people who do speak out have protection and amplification for whatever's happening.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I have a few minutes left. Let me ask anyone, especially those who are veterans, what impact to the VA healthcare facilities are they facing prior to and during the shutdown? For example, are there staffing, supply, or medication delivery issues?
I can take that, Congresswoman. Yeah. So my local, we represent VA workers in Asheville, North Carolina, and they have lost quite a few folks since January 20th, mainly due to the deferred resignation program and voluntary retirements. And it has affected care there. It's a lot of the folks that restocked medical supplies, they were let go. They were brought back, I think, and then they were let go again from all the confusion and chaos. So it's definitely had an effect on the employees, the employees that are still there, because a lot of the medical staff have to do that work now. So instead of providing care to veterans, they're running around and restocking shelves and moving things around and doing, I guess, some of the administrative work, I've been told.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a very helpful, and let me just say we hear you in that bringing individuals on and the risks you're taking as the risk when we go live and in the hearings, and we say the same thing that you were saying. We call them out. We say they are on vacation and not here, and we're here, and those who are in the districts, we're touring those facilities, trying to talk to those same employees to give them the reassurance that we will stand with them. But I think this is also helpful information to us that we should do a panel, and we bring a panel of union workers from across, so they hear what we're hearing from you and what more they can do to make sure that those workers are protected, so they don't get fired, or they don't get fired, rehired, only to be told that they're being displaced again. But let me just say, for the input, for the information, for your courage, for you standing up, not for yourself, but for American people, and for those who have served our country, those who might have a disability, those who are dependent in their life literally counts on these services or medication. I certainly say thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Beatty. I just want to thank all of you for being here. As the co-chair of Steering and Policy, I think I only missed one hearing in California. And every time I think I've heard it all, you reminded me today, I have not heard it all. And I'm angry, I'm appalled. It sounds like we know what they want to do at the Department of Education. I don't think they want one. And I think they want to privatize VA and HUD. From what you reported back, they just don't want HUD. And I could think of, I represent the Chicagoland area, but I go way south I'm urban, suburban, and rural. And when I think about the helicopter that landed on the building, ICE landed, that was my district. That building, even before they landed, it was so jacked up, excuse my terminology, but just so messed up. And you could see in so many places how HUD is so needed, and they want to tear it apart because they just don't care. And I just want to thank Democracy Forward for all of your work. Even before he was sworn in, you guys were on top of so many things, and that's why we could jump on things so fast. So just thank all of you for being here. As you've heard from my colleagues, we are with you. We stand with you. We're fighting with one arm behind our back, so we're going to fight till this one falls off, and we're going to start kicking. We just need y'all to kick with us. So just hang in there. We are going to get through this. And as you know, we're in the 22nd day of the Republican-led government shutdown. Federal workers, as you've reported, are missing paychecks. And as we've heard, there have been furloughed workers. There are fired workers. People are worried that Trump is going to withhold their pay. But let's be clear. The law signed by Donald Trump, I think he forgot, himself in 2019 guarantees that both essential and furloughed workers are paid. Mm-hmm. This is happening because Republicans do not want to make health care more affordable. They want to let the ACA premium tax credits expire, increase your monthly health bill, and give, as you've heard, Argentinian billionaires a $40 billion bailout. I have a brief story from my constituents. Yesterday, one of my staffers met with 2 small business owners from my district who are pleading to make health care more affordable. One of them has several coffee shops and worries about her own employees being able to afford health care. Health care is a large expense for a small business and its employees. I came from a mom-and-pop grocery store. The ACA premium tax credits provide affordable care to this coffee shop's employees. The other constituent owns a wine production business that sells nationwide. Despite her successful business, access to a plan that allows her to see her primary care doctor is so expensive. She is reliant on her husband for health care. Like you talked about your wife and her salary. This is unacceptable. These are stories of hardworking Americans, job creators trying to access health care for themselves and their employees. Should not be that difficult. Republicans love to say, get a job if you want health care. They also love to say we need to support our job creators. So let's do that. Let's extend the ACA premium tax credits. Let's make health care more affordable and accessible, and let's reopen this government sooner than later. Thank you all so very much again, and I adjourn this hearing.